Hi everyone, my name is Jill Dolgen. I am a director at KPMG, and my team has been working with our clients for the past 12 years implementing impactful Appian solutions. We're here with one of our most valued customers, Vanguard, who is here to discuss how they drove measurable business outcomes through a collaborative culture and well-architected Appian solutions. We have three panelists here. Oh, forgot the slides. We have three panelists here with you today who are excited to share their journey with Appian that they've been navigating over the past 5 years. From Vanguard, we have Alex Skyvo, a senior program manager, and Brandon Darty, a senior IT delivery manager. And from KPMG, we have Reich Hoffman, a director who served as the overall engagement lead for the development work at Vanguard. Before we get started, I just want to share some quick logistics. We'll have some planned questions I'll ask the panelists, and then we'll give you a chance to ask your questions as well. Let's get started. Alex, we'll start with you. Could you give us some background on Vanguard as a company?
Yeah, sure. I learned this morning that Appian turned 25 years old. I think this year. Vanguard will be 50 years old next year. Interestingly enough, I will be 50 in the same year, ironically. But a few fast facts about Vanguard. Founded in 1975 by John Bogle. And John Bogle created an innovation in the investment industry for the time, and that was called the index fund. And we've been known as an index fund investment shop for those years since then. A little known fact, we also have a very vibrant active fund product lineup with well-performing funds, particularly in the fixed income space. I know many of you are likely to be Vanguard investors. Show of hands, who has Vanguard retirement plan through their workplace? A handful, more or less. So that's the business line we're going to be talking about today, our retirement business. But a few more fast facts about Vanguard before we get into our program in digital transformation. Right now we have about $9 trillion in assets under management, one of the world's largest investment providers. 20,000 crew, that's what we call our employees, serve 50 million investors really across the globe. Our major business lines are in the US, though we do have that international presence, and our headquarters are in Malvern, Pennsylvania. We also have presence in heavy US presence in Scottsdale, Arizona, as well as Charlotte, North Carolina. A couple key success measures for Vanguard as a whole. Investment performance. Performance for our investors is one of our most important outcomes, and we're happy to say 89% of our investment funds outperform their Lipper peers. We strive for 90%, so a little bit short on that goal. Zooming into our institutional division, that retirement division that I talked about earlier in terms of workplace investing, and we experience right now a 99% retention rate. So that means 99% of the clients that are with us stay with us. That's a very important measure of our success as a business line. And we also pride ourselves in investor satisfaction. In 2022, a leading agency rated us number one. We're usually in the top 1 to 3 year over year, and we aim for that number one standing overall. So those are sort of the fast facts at the high level for Vanguard. Our digital transformation is going to focus on that retirement business, as I mentioned. And just to give you one more anchoring point, it's about 2.3 trillion of the 9. So that's the sort of the operational landscape that we're going to talk about in just a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, for sharing those insights. With a large asset manager like Vanguard, if you can think back 5 years ago, what challenges or pain points was Vanguard facing, and in particular within your institutional investor group? And then what visions did you have to overcome them?
Yeah, thanks, Jill. Let's anchor back to that $2.3 trillion number. So 20 million investors, right, some of you in this room, as mentioned, are part of that business. Well, historically, we served all of you and served the institutions that you work for through what I call human heroics, relationship teams and operational teams that just go above and beyond the call of duty. But they've traditionally been operating with spreadsheets, email, phone calls, recently chat. That's an innovation in workflow 5 years ago for us. Paper mail, believe it or not, faxing trades existed not too long ago. So that was the operational landscape we operated in. our relationship managers would spend 50% of their time in administrative tasks versus in investment committee meetings or talking directly to clients, doing investment reviews. So that's sort of the broad landscape we've been operating in, starting 5 years ago, and we're on a journey. We're by no means complete, and we're going to talk about that journey in just a little bit. But just a few quick data points or examples. About only 3 years ago, we had one process that was literally managed by paper forms. So it was a process of taking a client's accounts, aggregating them to get a better price to the end investor. And we used to literally run around with paper to different offices of senior leaders to get sign-offs. Kyle Scott in the back of the room there, Kyle, if you could stand, is a product owner on our team now. It used to be in relationship management, and that's what it would do. And it would take a week just to get a trade done, a transaction done. That process is now automated through Appian. It takes an hour. So one example. Last point, our fund lineup change process, actually it's been our biggest digital process development to date, actually just went live yesterday. Moves large-scale amounts of institutional money. Used to operate email, phone, chat, Excel, as I mentioned. That's now digitally scalable now in Appian. So just an example of the landscape we came from and where we're headed. And simply put, we're on a journey to make our processes better, faster, and cheaper, and we're doing that through digital transformation in Appian.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Those are certainly some challenges and pain points from a business perspective. So now I'd like to turn to you, Brendan, from an IT perspective. When you learned about these challenges from the business, what were your thoughts to address them, and what made you ultimately decide to use the Appian platform?
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. We're all at an Appian conference, so I don't think I need to, sell Appian to all of you, but we do want to tell our story, and hopefully you guys can walk away with a few nuggets based on what we've learned. Because as Alex mentioned, it's been about 5 years since the three of us have been collaborating together on this journey, and we've definitely learned a lot, so we thought we would share that with you guys today. So I'll orient you to the end-to-end, the E2E process automation. So again, we all know what Appian is. For our particular use case or opportunity space, as Alex mentioned, we did have a legacy workflow system. It had served us well for many, many years, but it was outgrowing its value, and we needed to look at something. So we really wanted to think about, okay, what are some of the pain points that we can solve through a platform like Appian? So in the end-to-end process space, we had areas of the business that were just completely ignored, right? So we did have some legacy workflow serving parts of the business, but many parts that had nothing, and were doing some of the legacy manual workflows that Alex just mentioned. So we needed something that we could connect, right, those internal working groups together and provide efficiency, right, reduce some risk, everything that we know and love from Appian. The second area is around configurable business rules. So we like to call this rules in head. And again, maybe some of you probably have the same issue, right? We have a lot of tenured crew members that work for Vanguard. They've been around for a long time, so they've got a lot of tacit knowledge in their heads, right? They have a lot of tribal knowledge. Some of that is just not documented anywhere, right? So that's a huge process risk, a key person risk. So we wanted to take this opportunity to get some of that digitized and reflected within a system. The next one's around platform scalability. So, I think, again, just like many of you, right, everything's moving at a pretty fast pace in technology. Alex described some of the Vanguard overview. We have been growing as an organization. So we needed to look at something that we could implement quickly, realize value, but that could grow with us, right? So that future forward-proofing solution that could see us over many years to come. The next one's around reduced system maintenance costs. So again, legacy systems are expensive, right? We were spending a lot of money just maintaining and keeping it alive, right? We were not having the opportunity to extend capabilities into the business, right? We were just really keeping it breathing. So it's really expensive. So what we love from Appian is we do run a platform as a service, so it's cloud hosted. We don't have an on-prem installation. So it removes a lot of that overhead from my team on the IT side to support the infrastructure. We get that through Appian. The next one's around user centricity. So again, if you think about not having to focus on infrastructure and support that, we can spend more of our time with our frontline users. We have a term at Vanguard called frontline obsession, right? Where we want all of our teams, right, to really get close with the business, understand their pain points, and iterate over time through enhancements on the Appian platform. And then the last one, probably one of the most critical, our legacy system, we were lucky if we were delivering enhancements every quarter, right? So we're really slow on legacy software. So now my team is elevating a few times per week of small enhancements, medium-sized enhancements, as we work on some of the bigger, more complex ones over time. So that time to market has been huge and highly valued by the business.
Thank you, Brendan. Those sound like common problems, which makes complete sense as to why you would choose the Appian platform. Can you explain how you got started with Appian and talk about your journey over the first few years working with KPMG?
Yeah, so again, this is our journey, and it will highlight some of the pain points that we went through over time. But going back 5 years, a little bit over 5 years, we started out with an experimentation framework, right? So we didn't know what Appian was. We were just getting to know the platform. We engaged with KPMG, right, who brought the knowledge and all of the experience with the platform. Alex and I established a cross-functional team. We added product owners, project managers, testers, technical integrators, right? And the first milestone that we call out on the graphic there is 92 days for the first tangible business value, right? So that was a great way for us to get started with the platform. And then we took a rinse and repeat approach, right, where we identified new opportunities to go after. But it's important to reflect that we were still looking at sort of isolated, targeted workflows. We hadn't yet gotten to that integrated part that I mentioned in the previous slide. But the success was building, right? We had a lot of other teams that started to be stood up at Vanguard, so some of our sister teams. The third milestone there is around building an enablement center. I actually have a colleague here from Vanguard. I think he's talking tomorrow morning in one of these breakouts that is going to talk a little bit about that. But that was really important for us as an organization to start to institutionalize, right, and get organized at the enterprise level with an Appian platform. Our senior leadership team really liked what we were doing and doubled down on the investment. So brought additional challenges for us. They wanted us to go faster, do more. And we started at that point to see some of the fractures within our foundational layer. And that's something we definitely want to spend a little bit of time talking about. How did we address that here today? And Reich can talk us through that piece.
Yeah, thank you. And I know it's been quite a journey. You mentioned some roadblocks that you encountered along the way. So Reich, from your perspective, how did KPMG work with Vanguard to navigate the roadblocks?
Thanks, Jill. So to navigate to some of the roadblocks that you just saw on the last slide and that Brendan just mentioned, we first gathered collaboratively between Vanguard and KPMG and identified some main key focus areas, and that we refer to often as the 4 pillars that you can see on this slide. And one of the first steps that we did was adding some leadership layers, leadership tiers to our governance model. That now also included the program executive sponsors in order to align on vision across the entire organization and also get actually the executive help to empower us to resolve these roadblocks. We set up a PMO office with a dedicated Vanguard PMO lead in order to address adherence to standards and minimize duplication and rework. Within the business office pillar, one of the main first tasks that we had to, or that we tackled was to install an intake and prioritization process that is aligned with our overall business architecture vision, as well as allowed Alex's product owner team that's here as well today to get ahead of development by creating a value-based batting list, or batting order that we called it. We also doubled down on user adoption by heavily investing and focusing in change management order, also with the intent to ultimately bring out our crew satisfaction scores for all the Appian users. Within the application delivery, we had basically 2 main focus areas. One was to streamline our existing delivery process to create more economies of scale through things like reusable components, and B, to align the collaboration between the team member to avoid some of the roadblocks we mentioned earlier, like the collision between the development teams that we saw, as Brendan mentioned as well. Within the more technical pillar, the architecture pillar, we had the objective was to automate as much as possible to create additional program efficiencies and also try to minimize subjectiveness by following best practice. Inserting here some of KPMG thought leadership. We basically, some of the things that we achieved were automating our code reviews, using Aquaman, one of the native tools within the Appian platform, to also increase adherence to coding and architecture standards, leading practice, and ultimately bring up code quality. And last but not least, we also, with the increasing amount of integrations and applications within the program, we decided to automate our regression testing portfolio, increasing testing efficiency, and then ultimately reduce the amount of defects in production. And I don't know, maybe Alex, Brendan, I know your crews were also heavily involved in this. Maybe you want to add some color?
Yeah, I mean, to make the governance business office boxes real, I'll give an example of a place we went wrong and a big lesson learned. One of the first key processes we built, mission critical processes, as we heard today from the Appian leadership team, was our sales process, right? From RFI, RFP, through sales final, right? It's highly important to our business, to our clients, our prospects to get that right. It was antiquated and just managed by that humanware, as I called it, in spreadsheets. We initially designed this in a bit of a lab environment, right? No governance, no real intake. We didn't have a lot of great stakeholder engagement. So some business me's, some really good continuous improvement professionals, the technologists, the IT teams, our consultant friends, designed what we thought was awesome. But when we rolled that out to the users, they were like, wow, this is crazy. We can't use it. Take it back. So that was something that we had to learn, that, hey, we've got to get some more upfront intake, stakeholder management, put the governance tiers in, get leadership buy-in to really help create meaningful change. And we're happy to report that we did iteration 2 after getting that business feedback, and the user feedback it went through the roof. So originally sort of kind of rejected. Now it's operating in real time, and we're getting great user feedback just by talking to those end users a little bit more in detail, getting out of our own way, and frankly putting these structures in place. Going from really what we've been is historically a durable agile product team to now a program. And that's sort of what's really helped generate a lot of meaningful change and impact.
Yeah, maybe I'll just layer in, if you go back to the title of the presentation, right, we use the word collaborative, right, really intentional there, right, the collaboration across our teams. And by the way, not just us, but extended teams, right, was really, really important. Everything you see here in the 4 pillars, it doesn't come for free, and it's not easy. So we had to intentionally slow down in order to go fast, right? So sometimes that can feel counterintuitive. But we put a lot of energy into this over the course of, I would say 2 to 3 months, right? Working on components here, and again, challenging ourselves and having candid conversations on what can we do differently. And this is the result. So I definitely think that there's some good learning there for all of you as well as us.
Yeah, thank you all for these tips for navigating these roadblocks. So Alex, this is what we really want to know. You've built multiple Appian applications over the course of the years and an associated program around them. What benefits did you see from using the Appian platform?
Yeah, I'll kind of walk through the slide that will be on the screen here in just a second. But before even going into the business benefit, we are still on a journey. As Brendan mentioned, 6-ish years in, a few more to go till we really feel that we're building out all of our mission critical, those high impact, and even I'd say medium impact processes. But some of the benefits we've already realized, starting with the crew experience, right? That employee user experience. We're about 1/3 of the way through digitizing our onboarding experience. In the current state, our relationship teams don't even know where to start. They don't have great documentation. They spend a week making phone calls to just figure out where to get started. Soon enough, by the end of this year, they're going to be able to just pull up their Appian. It's called My Workflow Managers, our internal jargon for the tool. Enter in their client information, and then the process just kicks off. All of the different groups they need to engage with have their tasks. It's 10 minutes versus running around for a week. So that's an example of what we've seen in a lot of our builds. Another data point there, where the 70% number, I'll kind of bring that to life. It's a process we call fee agreements, right? So it's the process of generating the right fees and billing for clients. In the former state, 100% of those requests required rework. So what that means in real life, I'm a relationship manager. I send an email off to my fee agreement office to get a client deal done, and I get a kickback. And I got to figure out what's missing, what is the documentation needed, and there's back and forth, again, as I mentioned, maybe upwards to a week. Now that we've been live in Appian, about 30% require rework. So a 70% reduction, 30% still not optimized, but a dramatic improvement from the legacy system. Cycle time improvements, you see a number there, 38%. We're seeing about 25 to 50% reduction in process cycle time through our build. Some are even greater, the more compelling examples. And we're saving a lot of money too. We're able to retire legacy systems. You see one system was about a $1 million annual ticket charge. We invested about $400,000 to build an Appian pricing tool, and it's done and it replaced that system. So think about that one-time $400,000 investment, $10,000 a year to care for it, and you're getting $1 million annuity paying back year over year. So really good business case there. And the last thing is in the risk space. So we see that greater transparency component, metrics, dashboards. We've had processes like the one I mentioned there, early on, where with Kyle, where thousands of transactions are occurring a year with no tracking. Now we have volumes, cycle time, quality, metrics. We can capacity plan. Dramatic improvement, and we're avoiding a lot of monetary losses. If you can imagine doing monetary work with email. Things can get lost, and one lost email can result in six-figure losses to our firm. So the Appian system has now given us greater automated controls, greater oversight, and the likelihood of those events occurring are very, very small now in the state that we're in today.
If I could maybe just weigh in on the metrics and the transparency, right? Again, something for you guys to think about in your own programs. Doesn't come for free, right? We had to really be disciplined in applying some energy. And, I heard some of the topics there on process mining and process HQ. We would love to take advantage of those things, right, to make that easier. But we spent a lot of, manual manpower, right, on capturing these metrics. We're glad we did, but we would love it to be easier.
And ultimately also resulting in the implementation of a value-based metrics dashboard. Has 3 areas: business metrics, delivery metrics, and quality metrics. So the whole spectrum of this is now captured in an automated metrics dashboard that keeps us on track.
Yeah, one more thing on this one, just because it's a big topic, and this is something we're still deeply working on. You heard today about data fabric and the importance of data fabric. Our data fabric isn't great in our institutional landscape, so we did a lot of the metrics work through a lot of side of the desk, people putting in extra effort outside of their current duties of their job. The lesson learned and the takeaway, not to get ahead of us, is really invest in your data capabilities early, right? And we're about to head into our technology planning cycle, our annual planning cycle, and we know we need to invest a bit heavier here because it's that important. And because we came from a place where it was what I like to call ghost processes. We didn't have anything. We didn't know. It was just whatever was sort of happening in the hallways. So a much better improvement and really invest in those capabilities, platform level capabilities, we'd probably call them, and the resources required to do so.
Yeah, thank you all. I know these are really strong outcomes, and I know there's probably a lot of people in the audience that would like to achieve them for their companies as well. Alex, you said you're not done. You're on a journey. What kinds of lessons did you learn, and what was the future outlook for your program?
Yeah, I think number one, it's the importance of a really compelling vision and a North Star, and really visualizing that for your stakeholders, whether that's senior executive leadership down to your SMEs and operators, and then your kind of mid-level business process owners. So really painting that picture is something we're still working on. We've done a lot of iterations on it. It's really helped us achieve a lot of funding and get buy-in. But we're still kind of iterating on what is the future there. So definitely spend that upfront time there. We talked about stakeholder buy-in, and the importance of that. How we had this sort of mistake with the sales process. We rolled it out and had to kind of take it back and redo it. So really investing in the upfront stakeholder engagement, business line engagement, and really focusing on some simplicity. In Agile, we think about this as MVP. I think that's probably common vernacular, common understanding. But we continue to have to remind our business leadership and stakeholders of the value of MVP, getting something out there, getting real clients, real users onto it, because that's where the real learning occurs. And we've had a few mistakes where we spent so much time trying to get to perfection, and that's wasted money, wasted costs. And then we bring it to the market, and we still get a bunch of enhancements that we've realized. So we're getting things out faster, getting our user base to get involved with them, investing deeply in the UAT experience, and it's paying a lot of dividends and a lot of value.
Brendan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, the MVP reference, I think, again, I hope everyone knows what that means, minimally viable product. So we have a tagline internally, again, progress over perfection, right? So get it in the hands of users, get them using it, and then you get to the day 2 feedback, and that's the best feedback, right? So iterating over time on that day 2 and making space for that. The other one that I would call out is, in the field of use space. Again, just another tagline from our internal workings. One of my tech leads used the phrase Appian envy, because early in our journey, we were building a lot of credibility and support for the platform and for the program. And I think I heard it in one of the other sessions earlier today as well, that everyone came knocking on our doors, right, collective doors, saying, I want an Appian solution. So we had to fight the urge to throw a new solution in place without due diligence on what's the problem we're trying to solve. And even though we're at an Appian conference, sometimes the answer might not be Appian, right? So you should be open-minded to the problem, use the right technology for the right solution.
Yeah, I love those terms, progress over perfection and Appian envy. Should we all have Appian envy? Reich, from your perspective, any additional lessons learned?
Yeah, ultimately, what we were talking about was a large program. It involved a lot of Vanguard IT business teams, third-party vendors, multiple third-party vendors, each of them bringing a unique skill set and perspective to the table. So what was really important to us was to create that collaborative, agile culture that allows these cross-functional teams to really work together, but yet, on the other hand, stay aligned to the common goal, while yet provide the ability for them and empower them to bring their expertise to the table, really in a way that ultimately results in a creative and innovative solution, rather than just time box it and narrow the scope. And on the other hand, from a requirements perspective, as we know these days, most of us are doing this project in an agile fashion. That means the business is involved from the beginning to the end, from a discovery, a sprint zero, demo, UAT, sign off, you name it, business is involved. And as these additional requirements emerge and evolve, it's really important to also continuously remind ourselves of the ultimate business outcomes and goals that we're trying to achieve and the business value that we're trying to achieve, as it should serve as the primary driver for prioritizations of the features that helps us to achieve these accomplishments. Rather than looking into what's more feasible, what's easier, really keep the business value in mind and their goals in order to make this a really viable and usable solution.
Yeah, and I would just say, a real tactical example, but we learned a lot from KPMG and all of their expertise. Something like as simple as the importance of sprint demos, right? Just making sure you're doing that at the end of every sprint and getting that feedback from the business, right? We did that at Vanguard within my team, but just not often enough. So making sure that you give the business the opportunity to give you feedback early and often.
Thank you. So as you can hear from the panelists, Vanguard has been on an automation journey over the past 5 years. They've realized significant business outcomes, and you've heard their perspective from business, from IT, and from KPMG. And so we hope that this is valuable to you and anyone else who may be in this position, the position that Vanguard was in 5 years ago. So now I'd like to open up to the room. Does anyone have any questions for any of the panelists? We have a microphone in the back.
You did mention doing more automated testing. What kind of tools did you use for that?
For the automated testing, we evaluated a set of tools, but ultimately we ended up using an RPI tool, UiPath, to be specific.
Yeah, but we did iterate. We had a period where we were using fitness, but yeah, UiPath is what we're using currently.
You said that you started off small with a smaller process or a simpler process. Can you say more about what that one was, just so I can understand the journey?
Yeah, so it was a business workflow around what we call aggregation. So, part of Vanguard's mission is to focus on our end users, or our end clients as owners of the organization. So the aggregation function allows us to aggregate accounts across different Maybe they have different balances in different accounts at Vanguard. So if we can aggregate them, we can give them a better price point or a better fee. So very localized, very targeted, small business unit, but that was the first one that we did.
Yeah, I want to add on to this question because it's actually an important one. We don't really get to it formally in the slides, but we really started with working on about 10% of the business. So I talked about 2.3 trillion under management, 20 million clients. We were really only operating originally in one segment of the business without getting too technical. That was about 10% of the crew, 10% of the clients, 10% of the activity. And we really built that whole department's operating systems out through Appian. And we were, as that durable product team, about to go into a BAU environment. We were getting ready for that. We're done here. We got a few more things. Let's really optimize the current state from here. And our business leadership team, essentially came to us and said, we need more of that. We need you to look at the other 90%. So that's sort of what we started out, and that's where we did really ramp up with the KPMG service, is to scale that. We were used to working in a smaller, more or less one IT team, two product owners. So we really had to scale pretty quickly, and we're still kind of working, our way up through that 90% that's left, kind of trying to get to that 100% all in.
And to add to that, that initial project, that aggregation project was really very successful. But hindsight, would we pick that same project again? Because it ultimately was heavy on integration and so much workflow. Was it really the best project to really promote Appian? Hindsight, you might have picked something else, but ultimately it was successful. But from a workflow perspective, could have picked something else. Back to the thing that I said earlier regarding business value, really something that enhances the business and helps them do these things.
That project's still paying off, though.
Yeah,
it's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, you're reminding me of one of the lessons learned from the very beginning. So when we started to learn how fast you can go with Appian, right? You can develop screens really, really quickly. We couldn't go as fast with those integrations, right? So in data integration, security services, right? We had to put a lot of pressure and influence on internal partners to keep up with us because we were going so fast. So yeah, reflection on picking the right one.
You're speaking to this a little bit. I'm a product owner myself. We work in Agile. We're going to be adopting Appian. What does product ownership and Agile look now that Appian's been adopted? Can you speak to a little bit how it was before to what it is now?
Yeah, I'm going to think about this one for a little bit. I might have to tag in an audience member here, Kyle. Real product. I don't know that I can say digital, what we call digital product ownership now at Vanguard has evolved that greatly just because of Appian. I think we've essentially either trained product owners that are working on something else, like let's say external web capabilities, to now look at internal workflows and systems. But a lot of the best practices of a product owner play out here, right? I think Appian's sort of another widget, right? If you really know how to do the craft and the trade. But welcome any comments from you or Kyle, who does it day to day, right? In the room here.
So I would say we've struggled with this a little bit, right? Because we are a product family, product team organization outside of Appian, and those are more clearly defined as having, hey, you have soup to nuts ownership of that product, and you're motivated to get value from the product. We look at Appian as a platform, and so we could argue that we might have like 35 individual products sitting on the platform. So the product owners like Kyle there are challenged in that they've got to do a lot of context switching, right, across all of those products. So they have groups of products that sit on the platform. But I would say it's still part of our journey and learning.
And the one word that comes to mind for me when I talk product owners is liaison. Liaison really between IT and the business to really make sure their needs are translated in user stories, communicate with IT, and make sure that glue is there to really tie the two together. That intake and prioritization, I cannot emphasize that enough, to really make sure you are connected with your program leadership, understand the value and the direction and the vision of the project, and be that gatekeeper to that, to make sure we're on track and make sure what is produced provides the value and will be adopted by the user. Looking at metrics, these kind of things in our understanding, is what a modern product owner should be accomplishing.
One more thing on this is a lesson learned and a takeaway, especially if you're building programs for new, is the difference between a functional business process owner and a product owner. So one of the places that our product owners get stuck is sometimes they're viewed as the quasi-functional owner of the process. And it really gets them sort of tied up. It really impacts their capacity. So really getting ownership, sponsorship / and ownership of the workflow, and then have your digital product owner truly be a digital product owner, because we're playing quasi-process owner roles, and that's something we're still trying to sort of solve for organizationally in our product owner lane.
Alex, I think you mentioned that. Okay. Alex, I think you mentioned at the top of the conversation that there was some adoption resistance. Who's testing the application or using business for user acceptance testing? And if you can share with us, how did you collaborate and influence and shape the adoption process?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So now our business teams are very involved with user experience testing, and the example I shared, very light, a handful of SMEs versus a process that goes across the organization, sometimes multiple divisions within the organization, sometimes even outside of the firm. So it's a heavy involvement now in UAT. In fact, this recent release that we just had with our fund lineup change was our best sort of engaged UAT session ever, where we made the product so much better even before MVP. Right, that was a circumstance there. So adoption's always a challenge. Each of our applications has a unique flavor, right? In some cases where we're replacing a legacy system, so SharePoint. So a lot of our businesses that use SharePoint for intake or Power Apps, it's pretty easy. You just turn it off. So the business user will use it, and then they get a message to flip over to Appian. In other examples, we'll have the business teams. I call them middle office, sort of investment industry jargon, middle office teams that are fielding requests. If they don't get it in Appian, they'll send a sort of a little bit of an email back with a link to Appian that says, we can't do the work unless you log in. And then there's their standard change management practices, leadership presentations, the meeting in the box, the memos, the bulletins, the videos. We do all that stuff, but each sort of application has taken on its own flavor. But we do have some really mechanisms where we can kind of, if all else fails, force them over. And that's just the reality of what we have to do at times. But our story has been, we'll say, compelling enough that our senior leadership is mandated this and just said this is the direction of travel, and we're adopting and moving on. And there's a no vote at this point. Where in the early times it was, we rolled out a process and they said no thanks.
Yeah, I'll just add on there because I think we termed it internally change fatigue on the business side. We found, again, because of the speed at which we were moving, we were throwing a lot of change at the business, and it was just one change out of many other changes that they were dealing with. So just respecting where they are and anticipating, are they ready for the change, right? Rather than just push technology at them, right? So that partnership's really important.
And also create that awareness that they really, to make them early realize, make them part of the process and early realize that this is to their benefit as well. That they really, that change makes their life easier rather than just see another system, to really realize the value that comes with it.
Yeah, the last point on that is I mentioned it in the product owner question, the value of the functional business owner. So when you have the functional business owner that carries the authority, that's partnered with the digital product owner and any change management resources, that adoption goes so much easier and so much smoother. When that's ambiguous, which we have a few cases where that's ambiguous, it's tough. There's a lot more influence and persuasion that needs to go into it.
So you mentioned starting with a project and then kind of addressing one business area. Now other parts of the business are asking. Have you taken steps to begin putting like an Appian Center of Excellence in place to help kind of foster and drive some of that? Can you just describe kind of what you're working through?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a stab at that first. So yes, we have a Center for Excellence. We call it an enablement center. We did that sort of midpoint on our journey. If you go back through our meandering road, we probably did it in year 2 or year 3. The way that we're structured, though, is that enablement center is sort of Vanguard wide, And then we have like this hub and spoke model. So we represent a spoke serving the institutional business. So we do partner with the enablement center, but they don't reach in to manage our business. So they're more in the platform extension, the reusable components, the standards, the architecture, right, for Vanguard as an enterprise. And then we have to manage our local business constraints.
Are they helping actually identify where opportunities might exist?
So, you know, it's interesting when Alex mentioned it, we started with the 10% and then we expanded our scope across all of what we call IAG. We do have a roadmap and sort of a strategy, but we find that you have to keep going back and reiterating and you know, getting a fresh perspective on that roadmap. What we thought we were dealing with at the beginning is not what we're dealing with right now. So again, spending the time in that big picture vision, in that strategy, and helping the business, you know, see the opportunity, right? So embracing all of the learning that we have and folding that into new development. So it's rinse and repeat.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how that would be really valuable to have some of their function capability helping identify opportunities. In our current world, we're not for a shortage of work. So there was the slide that sort of visualized the problem statement. I don't know if you can see it, but it said 235 workflows. So we have an inventory. Now it's not totally robust, but it's a list of 235. We're not going to build 235 processes at the end of the day. There's low value, medium, high, up the list, but we do have sort of enough of an inventory of work. It's a matter of what our struggle is. What's the highest value work? How do we satisfy and balance the needs across the business lines, the subdivisions, the demands of the stakeholders, which goes back to that governance, intake, you know, and how we manage that. You know, and we're still really working at the highest source of value right now. So the best business case wins. Right now, that's where we're at. We're not we haven't gotten to the point where, hey, the big value business cases have dried up. Now we got to look into the next tier. We're just not there yet, but it's a really good point. But the enablement center has been a great enterprise capability that we can leverage.
All right. Thank you all for these great questions. Thank you for attending. Panelists, thank you for your valuable insights. And if anybody has any additional questions, please feel free to contact us directly, to stop by the KPMG booth, and have a great Appian World.